Welcome to Inside the Noise by Guitarcenter, where we interview the artists, the leaders, and the innovators in the music industry. I'm Gabe Dalporto, CEO of Guitarcenter. Let's go inside the noise. Hey everybody, welcome. We've got a really special episode today. I'm here with Brian Ball, CEO of Ernie Ball, third generation family CEO, one of the iconic companies of our industry, revolutionized the strings market, have built an iconic guitar and bass brand, continues to push our technology in the industry forward. Tell us a little bit about Ernie Ball and maybe just the history.
Sure. I'm one of the fortunate ones in the industry. I had a pretty incredible journey of getting to learn through osmosis from my grandfather, Ernie, and my dad, Sterling. And to me, our industry is so unique on a lot of fronts. But the thing that I resonated with so much when I was a young kid is how much pride and passion went into the products that we were creating. The identity of the brand that my grandfather was creating and the colors and the eagle. And there was so much about like the iconography and things that just like resonated so strongly with me that it's all I've ever wanted to do. I had an incredible opportunity and I'm third generation CEO. Passion is to build the legacy as hard as I can and preserve what we've built. So
tell me, like, why does Ernie Ball exist? Like, what was that genesis moment? I mean, you think about making strings and it's this highly manufacturing intensive process, highly automated. Obviously you can't start there, right? So like, why did he even get started and how did he get started?
Great question. I mean, my grandfather was a player first, right? And he was an innovator and a pioneer in a lot of fronts. He was the first guitar retail store that only sold guitars at a time that big band music was still popular. So he failed multiple times. And upon opening a store that had a teaching studio, he recognized that kids had a very hard time playing the strings that were available. So Ernie Ball was born out of an opportunity. It wasn't born out of trying to create a lifestyle brand. He was a player, recognized that there was a market opportunity, was told he was crazy, and then still marched forward and created lighter strings for people to play rock and roll.
I feel like if you're an entrepreneur and people don't say you're crazy, then you have the wrong idea.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Any entrepreneur or innovator, one, you're crazy to even attempt to try to build a business. But two, there was not really a guitar string business at the time in the early 1960s, right? The British invasion and rock and roll really hadn't came to life yet. So
yeah. He decides to start a brand. Does he have equipment? Like, how does he even get it going?
He didn't have equipment. He started private labeling banjo strings as rock and roll guitar strings. So his creativity was early on. He couldn't get people to make him smaller strings. They weren't available. So he recognized the banjo frailing strings were thinner, and my dad and his brothers and sisters would hand coil the strings.
Oh man.
He was an artist at heart and created a package of rock and roll guitar strings and went to an elementary school in the Newport Beach area and showed him a black and white pack and a fluorescent pack and asked him, which one do you like? Well, they chose the fluorescent pack.
Can you ask kids this?
Kids were his beta testers.
Yeah, pretty obvious answer.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering where the fluorescent pack came from. Where did the eagle come from?
Eagle came from, my grandfather had an art agency with Raleigh Crump, who was a designer for Disney at the time. I think my grandpa had a pretty strong passion for animals, and the eagle and what it represented it was intelligent, it was passionate, it was, in so many ways that, when you think about what an eagle is, in the sky, that's sort of, I think, resonated with him pretty well. But at the time, again, he didn't make an eagle or fluorescent strings thinking he was building a true business. He just wanted to provide a tool for musicians to be able to play rock and roll.
Yeah. And it's amazing how many great businesses are just born out of frustration. So fast forward a little bit, and how did the company finally get scale? Like, what was that point where they knew there was something big?
Right place, right time. Guitar Player magazine had just hit. Guitarcenter was born in 1959, I believe, right? So you had a vehicle and a framework for retail outlets. You had a publication to promote your product. And I mean, George Harrison's solos and Jimmy Page and Keith Richards and Eric Clapton, a lot of the guys that found Ernie Ball rock and roll strings that started playing them. He now had a medium to promote that. So his timing was perfect. Then as like, you know, the 70s and 80s were a big growth period. My dad was instrumental in taking us international and having distribution and the foundation from rock and roll and just the timing of that music becoming so popular and big.
It's pretty amazing because the thing that worked so much to your advantage was the thing that almost killed the acoustic guitar makers. They struggled terribly in the 70s and 80s, the acoustic guitar manufacturers, because everybody was so enthralled with rock and the electric guitar, and no one was interested in the acoustic guitar, and almost took several of them down. But really, I think, like, you caught that wave and rode it, and Guitarcenter, same thing. Guitarcenter started off as the organ center, and the Beatles came, and we immediately became the Vox Center, selling Vox amplifiers, and eventually became Guitarcenter. So now your dad actually made the move to acquire Music Man, is that?
He did.
So that was a little bit of a bold move. Like, what was behind that?
He is bold, and he's done so much in his career. Music Man was one of those moments where he was a beta tester for Leo on the StingRay bass. You know, Leo wanted a rock guy in the Newport Beach area to play. My dad gigged all the time in bands, and so he was a beta tester for the StingRay and really gave, I think, a lot of feedback.
For people listening, Leo Fender,
excuse me.
The Leo for insiders.
The Leo, yes. So my dad beta tested for the StingRay, and I think when the opportunity came that Music Man became available, he felt like, you know, he was such an early steward for the instrument that it had to be Ernie Ball to help carry that torch, and he was so passionate about the bass. At the time when he bought it in 1984, once he had it, he says, oh, whoa, now I got to figure out how to build a guitar factory, and I'm carrying on Leo Fender's design and his legacy, and now what do I do? How do I build a guitar factory? So yes, bold, and but the StingRay is such a important piece of our company's history.
You had this passion, you knew you wanted to be in the business. Like, where'd you get started?
My first real start working for the company was actually on the Vans Warped Tour. We had a mobile stage on the road where we were giving undiscovered bands the chance to play live. And it was a program my dad started that I just like fell in love with. And I wanted to figure out how to make the program as big as it could be, because to me, there's no greater form of self-expression in the world than to play live.
Yeah.
And we were making guitars, but guitar players didn't have a chance to play live. So recognizing that when I was on the Vans Warped Tour, like, changed my life, made me want to be a part of artist relations in the company in any way. And once I got home, I kind of kicked the door in and just started doing artist relations and sales. And yeah.
What you did with the Warped Tour and Battle of the Bands and the ability to give up and coming aspiring artists a literal stage in a large venue, I mean, there's, I think, nothing more important that you could have done. I've actually met many people who have been through the Battle of Bands and performed on your stage, and they talk about how meaningful that was in their lives. Like, you have influenced thousands or tens of thousands of people through this effort, right? In a really, really positive way for the industry. So I just really admired what you did there. And that continued on for like 25 years, right?
25 years. And I have to give a lot of credit to Kevin Lyman, who is a partner of ours, who ran the Warped Tour and built it up to what it is. And we were really early on, and we kind of helped. You talk about riding waves. Kevin created just an incredible festival that changed so many bands' lives. And to your point, like, when I hear someone say, I got to play your stage in 1997, and that was like the highlight of my high school years or even beyond, like, that's profound. That's so cool to hear someone say that.
So you got the bug. Now, how'd you make it back into the mothership?
Got the bug, started working right after Warped Tour started. I was in artist relations, and my job was to build the Battle of Bands and work with artists and help process orders for their needs and stuff like that. And I fell in love with the artist side of our business and the relational side of our business, and how much that was already in like the DNA of our brand. And so that's kind of been with me my whole career of like, artists aren't transactional relationships. They're, incredibly powerful relationships that can help you push product forward and innovation forward. So, I watched my dad have guys like Steve Lukather and Albert Lee and Steve Morris in our living room when I was a kid. And like, so artists are just so foundational to everything we do.
So speaking of, I think we have a surprise guest today.
Yeah, we do. One of my closest friends in the industry and someone that I was able to collaborate with on a guitar that I'm tremendously proud of, the one and only Tosin Abasi here.
All right, Tosin, welcome.
What's up?
Great to see you.
What's up, dude?
Hi.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
I was listening to your Spotify channel yesterday, and I'm just floored. And I'm thinking, how does he do that? And then I'm looking at this magnificent instrument you've designed, and it's and I get a better sense of how you do it.
This whole thing?
Yeah. So, tell me, how did you guys meet? And
I think I reached out to Brian right around the pandemic. Was it at the
early part of the pandemic? Yeah.
Yeah. We were discussing some things, and then it came up that it would be cool to collaborate on an instrument.
Yeah.
And to try something novel as opposed to the traditional sort of like signature thing. It was more of a almost like a opportunity for me to make a Music Man that I felt didn't exist. You know what I mean?
yeah, completely.
And it's kind of like they'd always been on my radar as like a California brand that was making really high-end instruments, but also a focus on features and technology. And I'm a big Dream Theater fan, and just the whole what they did with the Majesty and that evolution from the JP15, and like even some of the other designs like the St. Vincent guitar, and like I just resonated with the embrace of concepts that they kind of made central to their brand, and so I was like kind of felt like a kid in a candy store, especially once I visited the factory and saw like the caliber of the engineering there.
Yeah.
It was kind of like, damn, like, and then their head engineer, Drew, had like a bunch of ideas kind of in the tank. And so in a lot of ways, this is collaborative beyond my ideas. They kind of had some stuff, secret sauce that I think they were looking for an opportunity to bring out as well.
There's a million tiny little design decisions that go into an instrument, and individually, they may or may not be meaningful, and together they're huge.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you mentioned the JP Majesty. That's a phenomenal guitar, but if you break it down, there's a million improvements over a standard, kind of legacy guitar.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, there's a lot of innovation happening at Music Man, and just the amount of thought that goes into each of these decisions is pretty incredible. So when you decided to like partner with them to design this guitar, like what were some of the things that were on your mind that you wanted to push? Like what boundaries did you want to push?
I think it was primarily the extended range stuff where you see these are slanted frets, so it's multi-scale.
It's cool. It is a little like weird, it's like riding a bike for the first time. But
yeah. So I primarily play 7 and 8 string guitars. So my focus was to kind of start with the extended range in mind.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe you guys had a multi-scale instrument at that time, right?
No, we didn't. And this is still the only one.
It's still the only one?
Yeah.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, I'm going to help Music Man do their first like fan fret guitar.
All right.
Like that alone was really cool. And it's not arbitrary. It helps for, like intonation and like string tension in the lower. So like in metal and progressive metal, there's people tune down and they have alternate tunings. And, but I'm a lead player. I like guitars that play fast and effortless. And so with the multi-scale stuff, you get an opportunity to retain the playability in the treble strings without adding that scale length, which would increase string tension and stuff like that.
Right.
But then when you get to the lower register, those strings have enough scale length to have the right like temperament, right? So I think that was like one of the core goals. And then just things like ergonomics, like how thin this body is. Like I kind of feel like the guitar should disappear. Mm-hmm. Like it shouldn't get in your way at all. It's hard enough to play guitar. So, and the guitar space is really interesting because the most iconic instruments, I think their designs have been kind of crystallized since the 60s, right? And then it's a strange argument because there's so many iconic players who like a Les Paul or Strat was good enough for them. So a lot of guitar players get in their mind, they're like, oh, well, Jimmy Page was fine with that. So I guess I don't need more fret access, or I don't need better balance. And so it's this very interesting balance of designing the guitar further to feel like you're benefiting from the design without leaving behind the core, the bones of what it makes the guitar feel gratifying. And so, yeah, we did this double cutaway design, sort of thin. And, you know, I think maybe the most radical thing, I guess it'd be the multi-scale. I mean, it's got a multi-scale trem as well. And, you know, some of this stuff is really subtle, but there aren't any flat parallel surfaces on the guitar, you know?
There's no flat surface on this guitar. That must have been easy to manufacture.
Thankfully, Drew knew how to do this, because when Tosin came to me with that idea, I don't want a flat surface. I said, good luck, Drew.
He seemed to just have it in the bag. And then he had a really interesting idea for what they're calling the infinity radius. And if I'm getting this right, effectively, you know, every fingerboard peaks at the top of its radius, right? And then it declines. And this idea was to actually place that peak in the hypothetical future. It's in a horizon that you never reach, basically. And so the net effect is just unobstructed visibility down to the treble strings, and it actually is a slight wedge shape. So if you were to follow that trajectory, I think you would eventually hit that high point of the radius, and then it would decline. But I mean, I'm not an engineer. I hope I'm not butchering this, but what you notice as a guitar player is that, I don't know if everyone does this, but sometimes I kind of like try to tilt the guitar a little bit on stage just so
you can see.
Yeah. And so this prevents the need to do that. But it just, in your hand, the strings fall kind of a little bit more like effortlessly where you want them.
Yeah.
And then we did something kind of novel where we actually shortened the treble length is actually 24.7, if I'm not mistaken. I think most guitars are in the 25.5 inch. So this actually, you get to benefit from a slightly shorter scale length than the treble, which makes legato just that much easier, like wide spreads, you know? And then we benefited from the multi-scale by being able to extend this to 25.5. So you get that tightness there.
So it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah. It feels kind of like you drive a car and then you hop in like a Porsche 911 or something, and you're like, whoa.
Oh, that happened to me. I went out and bought one right afterwards.
Did you?
Yeah.
It's sharper, it's more responsive, the steering is more dialed, and I kind of like that in the guitar, because it just allows you to put all your efforts into playing, as opposed to fighting a bulky neck or a heel joint that's not your ideal. Or
So does this thing feel like a glove? Like,
you tell me.
So, first of all, it's the right weight. It's not heavy. But it's not dainty either. It's kind of
It's not
perfect.
too light, right?
Yeah, because you don't want either, really. And I'm still getting used to the angled frets.
Looks good on you.
I know, doesn't it?
The jacket.
Nice. The finish is incredible. Yeah.
The finish was
And
cool.
this feels really, really nice up here in the upper frets.
Yeah, so, you know, the fan fret brings that highest fret kind of closer to you. I don't know. I think there's an art to doing the fanning too. Where you place the parallel fret will determine how extreme the fanning is.
Right.
So there's many ways to skin the cat, but I think we found a really good neutral position. Everyone has their preferences. In a perfect world, I feel like most people pick this up and they don't, in fact, notice the fanning. And I think if you spent, 10 to 15 minutes with it, you might surprise yourself.
10 minutes and you're hooked.
Yeah. And then the last thing was like the finishes. This was probably the most unique one we've done. They had to buy some special machine to figure this out.
We bought a chrome machine, and the coolest part about exploring this guitar and new finishes and stuff, this was a happy accident, really, in that we were trying to make a very modern, futuristic, metal-looking guitar without using metal. And in the process of doing it, there was this spray you put on it that Tosin saw when he visited the factory, and he went, wait a second, that looked like it was born out of Terminator or some wreckage from
a re-entry pod or something.
Yeah.
So, we ended up going with this, and I don't think there's anything like it out there.
Well, because of that process, each one of these does come out slightly different. And I think that's really cool when you buy something and it feels like you have one of one.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast. We've actually been really overwhelmed by the response so far, so thank you for that. We have also noticed that a lot of you haven't subscribed yet. We have incredible guests coming up. I'm not even allowed to tell you who they are, but trust me, you don't want to miss this. So hit subscribe. That way you don't miss an episode. Now back to the program.
So this is pretty amazing, and I love the partnership. I mean, Tosin, you're one of the best guitarists in the world, and but I understand you weren't classically trained. Like, tell me your journey.
My journey was alternative rock and MTV and like Nirvana and stuff. We probably have similar, I had never heard anything like Steve Vai or Yngwie Malmsteen or John
Have you seen his hands?
Yeah.
They're enormous.
Yeah, he's a big guy. And it's funny you're speaking about strings. I don't know what brands he plays, but he's playing like eight gauge strings, like the slinkiest of slinky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Paul Gilbert, he plays sevens now.
Is that a thing?
It's a thing. We have 7 gauge strings, and Paul was at NAMM, and he's like, oh my God, I play 7 gauge strings now, and
wow.
I love them.
That's interesting.
It's the opposite of Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think I was influenced by Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Nirvana. And when I was 12, I had a friend who was taking guitar lessons. And so I just picked up the guitar one day and I was like, show me something. And show me like a little Metallica riff. I had been playing clarinet in the school orchestra, so I wasn't completely like non-musical, but the guitar was infinitely cooler than the clarinet,
Just a little.
Yeah. There were no clarinets on MTV, But I got hooked. I think there was something about trying to like fret a note and then get the pick in the right place. And for some reason that headspace, the way I think of it is like learning guitar is all these small victories. So like you have this condensed, like a compressed timeline of personal growth because it might take you a week to like really get a bar chord with no buzzing, but then you feel like I got this, right? And then the next thing might be like learning more voicings or learning new scales, but there's all these little like accomplishments built into learning the guitar. Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of dopamine feedback loop just kind of caught me. And it's a personal pursuit too, because like, I mean, it's not like you're like writing poetry or like, but it's a personal expression. So you're kind of in solitude often, and you're using your own discipline and your own focus to guide your own development. And I think there aren't a ton of opportunities to do that unless you're like an athlete or something, but like the guitar feels really personal, feels expressive. And so, yeah, I'm glad I caught that bug really early on and I just got obsessed.
Yeah, it's I think you hit on something like really awesome. It's like there's no end to the journey, right? Like there's always pushing yourself a little further, learning something extra. And even when you get, quite good, then there's composition, right? And then that can take you forever, right? It's just what's that next piece of creativity? What do you want to bring to life? What's this idea that's nagging in your head?
It's so true. And then there are clear goals like I want to pick faster or I want to learn the song, but you get to a point.
Can you show me how to pick faster? Because I'm working on that.
I can recommend a few guys. But your goals become more abstract because at a point you can play fast and a bunch of scales, but you're still chasing something.
Yeah.
And what's cool about it is like you are the one who's now defining that next goal. And I don't think there are many things in life that are like that. Maybe if you're a serial entrepreneur or something, you determine what the next, but that's creative in its own way. And I think people relate to music in a way that's different to like creating businesses or something like that, right? So, moral of the story is it just felt like this really cool opportunity to develop who I am and express myself through like a tool,
It's funny you make that linkage back to business. I've been doing these podcasts for a little while now, and a theme that keeps coming up is a lot of musicians make great inventors and great business people because there's something that is inherently like fluid and creative about playing. And musicians often approach problems in different angles and with different approaches. That's a little bit more creative than your standard just business school, graduate. And I've had the opportunity to speak with so many people who have gone on and invented new instruments, who have gone on and started new companies. or really like actually just spoke with someone who went and designed missile systems for the Defense Department, right? So like,
Wow.
all of this creativity and freedom that comes from producing music, actually, I think transitions pretty nicely into business, entrepreneurship, and a lot of musicians actually turn into really great business people. Case in point here.
I think you have to be fearless to play, because no matter what, you're putting yourself out there, right? Whether it's, starting Animals as leaders, and that sound wasn't really around then, or you play your first, cover band performance, or today, you're always putting yourself out there. So you got to be fearless that, you're good enough. And that pursuit of always reaching those milestones you talked about, you have to do that in business too.
Yeah. For example, Ernie Ball already had a completely dominant position in the string business. And you've been able to push forward on Cobalt, on more durable strings. Like, tell me, like, what goes into that? Like, what are you going for here? And like, why not just be good enough?
The status quo isn't really in my DNA. It's not in my family's DNA. And the idea of what can make a guitar better, or what can make a string better, is like, that's what drives us every day. And to try to make a louder string, which we did with Cobalt, or try to make a guitar with no flat surfaces and every part is custom on the guitar. Like, if you're not excited about doing that, you need some help, because to me, it's the funnest thing in the world. Our job is to make the tool that gets out of an artist like Tosin's way. Mm-hmm. He talked about that with the guitar. The string, he shouldn't be thinking about it. The guitar, it's just we're creating the best tools for him to play the best and write the best, and being a part of that journey is amazing. It's killer.
So kind of what drives you, Brian? Like, what do you now have taken the helm? What do you hope to bring? Like, what do you hope the next 10, 20 years look like?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of doom and gloom about guitar in general, just that it's not on the Grammys as much, or not in popular music as much, but I actually think it might be the most exciting time in the history of guitar now. And there's a reason why. That you have this ecosystem of players that grew up playing a certain way, right? You have a generation that grew up playing and evolving in the way Tosin has. And then also you have a generation of players coming up who are either aspiring for new sounds, or a way to express themselves with the guitar, or finding a new voice with strings. They're genuinely so curious about how to continue to push the instrument forward, that we want to be at the forefront of every part of that product journey. And so that's where we're going for the next 10 or 20 years, where, I'm not interested in making the same old thing. We will offer the best tools that people are used to, but we're going to certainly try to keep advancing it.
Yeah, I see that. If nobody's played the Cobalt strings, you got to try them out. They're fantastic. Like, it will make your instrument sound different and better. And so I see those innovations. I'm looking forward to the next ones coming. We had a little conversation about something coming down the pipe. We can't say what it is, but it's gonna be pretty cool. I often find that everybody's got a Guitarcenter story. And I was wondering if either of you have maybe an experience you might want to share.
I got a thing.
Okay.
I'll go first. Yeah. Guitarcenter, man, it's been just in my life since I was a young boy. And I remember going to guitar centers, and whether it was a clinic or going to the Hollywood store has been so pivotal in my family, and going there still to this day and seeing my grandfather's handprints in Rock Walk is like, I think I've even been there with Tosin, and every time I go to that Hollywood store, I put my hands in the handprints, and it gives me a lot of pride and gratitude and all that. Guitarcenter has been instrumental in my career, from creating exclusive promotions like Shred with Slash and Warped Tour we partnered on, and like from the start to when I was a kid to now, it's still an incredibly pivotal part of my journey.
I think I don't have anything as epic as that, but I know where those hands are. Like, I think that's really cool at the Hollywood store.
Yeah. The Rock Walk is You know, it was created at a time when no one was really recognizing pioneers in music and rock and roll, and it just needed to be done. And we've had so many great, legendary creators, inventors, artists participate, and we had a chance to honor them. But sorry, I
yeah, you. I think for me, it's probably more similar to the average young guitar player, where like, you know, I would be able to come into Guitar Center and try gear that I couldn't afford, per se, you know, but, you know.
We know that well.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But like, it created an aspirational effect that was definitely like, man, if I mow enough lawns or something, maybe I can grab one of these. But yeah, it would just be kind of part of my development where like, I would literally on a Saturday or something, what I was going to do is go to Guitar Player and maybe like try some stuff out for an hour or two. Yeah. And we had independent stores, but none of them were on the same scale. And so I have distinct memories of trying like really quite nice gear and being like, man, one day. I remember one time in Atlanta, there was a diesel VH4, which is like, it's a very high-end, expensive amplifier. And I remember there was a loud room and I got to plug it in. I was like, this feels like using a weapon. Like this thing is so aggressive. And I wouldn't have really had that chance to kind of plug into something that nice and turn it up. And, you know, so I kind of like have these random memories of going to GC and trying.
Those are the perfect memories. And, you know, I hope we get to give those memories to some kid walking through the door today.
Yes. And you know what? Having staff that's tolerant of that, it's like, you know, the 17-year-old kid doesn't have $4,500 for the PRS he's playing, but it's like, all right, like, you know, maybe this will pay dividends in some way, you know, so shout out to all the staff.
Yeah. And you know what? It does, right? I mean, if we can be the place that inspire kids to, you know, follow a lifetime of music, they're of course going to come back and they're going to buy stuff with us. And, you know, the important thing is we're providing a community location where musicians can come, they can explore, they can meet other musicians, and over time, they'll become customers.
Mm-hmm. You know, you come to a Guitar Center now, and when you can walk in and you see nice couches, I mean, that wasn't there 10, 15 years ago, and I know that's got your fingerprint on it. And to me, whatever spontaneous jam sessions or collaborations come out of that between musicians of different demographics, I'm excited to see that. I've seen a couple actually on social media, and I think it's just so cool. You're recreating a vibe and a community here in the store. And so I know that's your fingerprint.
Yeah,
so huge kudos on that.
Before I worked here, I was a customer. And the only thing I think about every day is just like, how do we make an experience that like I want to come in and enjoy, right? And I think if we just think about a musician and we create an environment that musicians love and have fun in, like that's it, like we won. And everything else will take care of itself. Well, Tosin, it's great to meet you. Thank you for coming in.
My
Brian,
pleasure.
It's great to see you again.
It's great to see you.
You know, congratulations on all the incredible success and innovation you're driving. I can't wait to see this next wave hit the market, and you guys need to see it too. So just stay tuned.
Thank you, Gabe.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.